I stopped giving a fuck.
My question is, was was there any difficulty you faced in getting there in terms of was there a part of you wished that you never had to change, that you've now changed?
I grew up thinking that if you explain something very well to some people, right, they will understand or whatnot. But maturing is realizing that people don't necessarily want what you're giving them; they want what you have. There is no way that you necessarily be able to convince somebody who is already committed to misunderstanding. Endurance is not a virtue, right? So you don't have to so you have to figure out when it's enough or when you have gone overboard.
Nobody's life goes the way they planned. Not yours, not mine, not hers. Somewhere along the way, life changes the script. A move, a loss, a decision, or a door closing. And suddenly, you're becoming someone you've never expected to be. Today's conversation is with someone who's lived that more than once. And the question is, what do you do when life turns you into someone you never planned to become? Barbara, thank you for being here with us. We're so excited to have you. Oh my God.
Thank you very much, Charles. How are you?
I'm doing okay. And I know we share a history, Babs. Some people would essentially refer to us as siblings because for some reason we share the same surname. So yeah, there's a lot to us that we know about. But today I like to talk about something else, and some of which I probably think I have answers to,
Yeah.
but most of which I still do not because it's your story and I wanted people to be able to connect with you. So I'd love to begin with your younger self, Babs. When you were younger, what did you imagine your life would look like?
To be honest, that's kind of like a heavyweight question, but what comes to mind, or a simple way to answer that was, I think I started imagine what adult me would look like when I was in primary one, primary two, right? And it was on the
Mhm.
back of the Alliance CB readers. So the Macmillan readers for English language, right? There was
Yeah.
each class had different readers. So reader one, the first comprehension page on it was Alliance CB in their home, sitting down in front of their television and watching TV, right? And there was a
Yeah.
part of me that saw myself in that, a little bit of it, of the girl and her brother watching TV. I also loved McVitie's Digestive, the original. That was like my holy grail. So for me, I used to think of growing up, what I would like to do or what I would like to be is to be a version of Ali and CB in my own house, preferably in a two-story building. Yeah, watching TV and eating all the McVitie's digestive I could find. Right,
Yeah.
that was like what joy and peace looked like for me. Yeah. There was also a part of me that thought of ambition as a child. I didn't necessarily have the word for it, or with adult lenses, I can look at it as ambition, goodness, intelligence, like of a life full of vigor and a life full of possibilities and abundance. But I would say that what I did not understand then is that life is not just about becoming successful, it is also about becoming honest, right? I just did not understand like the capacity or the bandwidth at which honesty will actually take up life as adulthood, honest about who you are, what you can carry, what you
Mhm.
want, and what you can no longer shrink yourself to survive.
All right, that's great. And just before the next question, Barbara, and I think for me was that, and I think at primary five, I admired Gandoki, the father of Gaba. Yeah. I was very in awe that he lived a charmed life. He could go to war and stuff, and then we are grown ups, and what that represents now.
Yeah.
And oh my god! But like I get, we had different memories now.
But do you know the funny thing? 2 years ago, upstairs in my 12th, I live on the 12th floor of my building, right? Upstairs in
Yeah.
my apartment, like 2 years ago, I somehow realized, or like I just had this out of body experience, like, oh my God, I am living my dream. And I remember like old, young, I remember like little Barbara and all of that. I'm like, oh my God, Alliance Simbi. And I remember like I was at the verge of like buying some stuff from Nigeria, right? I remember reaching out
Mhm.
to Bukola, my friend, who owns a business, and her shop was in the marketplace. And I remember asking her to help me go to a bookshop and help me find that book. And I wanted from reader one and reader two, and she thought I was insane. Like, why the fuck
Yeah.
would you want? What do you want with elementary school readers or comprehension passage books? And I'm like, because that was once upon a dream. So like I would like to have it. I do have the reader one and two upstairs at home
Yeah.
now. Yeah, but like
So it has some sort of emotional connection with you.
yes. Yes.
I think for me, like I don't, it's not a similar story, but I think for mine is, I look at all the fine prints that shaped me back in the days. Think about Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist, Cyprian Equensis, and African Night Entertainment, right? But back to eBay, the Cannon Boy, Atman and the Smuggler, and even towards secondary school stages when I was reading Government Inspector, Black Boy, Sister Bansi
Yeah.
is Dead, Macbeth. What I did is, or what I do is, I bought those for my cousins as well, and we try and as much as possible on a monthly basis look at their journey with it,
The
what they are
themes,
learning.
yeah.
It
The
improves how they
allegories, yeah.
speak, it improves their linguistic, but beyond that, it helps them understand the world beyond Lagos and have a different perspective of what they're doing. So yeah, it's not similar, but I thought I should share that as well.
Yeah, like because somehow, right? Like I think someone who like saying it out loud now, like
Hmm.
adulthood for me was something I pictured from a fantasy lens, and getting lost in art books especially was like that thing for me of
Yeah.
what will life be like for me like an adult. And I remember sometimes even in secondary school when we'll have those essays or whatever competitions, and they'll ask, oh, what do you want to be in the future? And I my junior secondary school was an all girls school at first, and I remember then like the most ambitious thing anyone could say then was, "Well, I want to be the first female president of Nigeria." That was like, oh wow, but that was never really my thing, right? And I
Hmm.
remember like other girls in my class like having really huge ambition about, oh, I want to be I want to be a female pilot. Those were ambitious stuff, right? And me, I
Yeah.
think what I used to say then was, I want to be a lawyer, because I grew up with my mom telling me she wanted me to be a lawyer, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, but yeah, adulthood has pretty much
Okay.
changed. Like
I mean, and now I very much know that you're not a lawyer. And just to my next question as well, how different, is that person you were from who you've become today?
so, I don't think she's totally gone. Most importantly, I'm a dreamer. First of all, I'm a dreamer at heart before
Hmm.
anything. So yes, I still dream, but now with much more discernment. I am. There's still a little bit of softness in me. The woman I am today still believes in effort, because one thing that life has taught me, or previously, like I believed growing up that effort could solve almost everything, but the person I am right now, believes in effort but still believes strongly on discernment. I no longer think that every door is mine to open. And it's not me, and it's not from a place of cynicism, but also because of the fact that life has also painstakingly educated me as regards multiple areas of my life. I also don't believe in selling, or while I might be a salesperson professionally, right? I think sometimes that can sometimes spill into personal life, right? Where you are like, while you are sitting your conviction, you're trying to, you think that if you explain something good enough to somebody that they will understand, right? That tires me out. Right now, this version of me, I want to keep work at work, and even at work, I don't want to oversell, or like there's a part of it that just feels, oh my god, that's kind of sad, but yeah, I'm exhausted basically, right? Anything that requires me to overextend past a certain capacity or threshold, I don't want to do it anymore, professionally or of personally. And like I think that's like the one major thing that has changed about me.
So did you lose your resolve to dream?
No, like I said, I still dream, right? But
Hmm.
most importantly, I've learned to start sometimes. I've learned to sometimes keep my dream or protect my dreams, right? It's not for everybody. Like, and not because I'm not confident. I'm very confident in my
Hmm.
capacity. I'm in my abilities to do anything. I don't think anything is actually out of my reach. I've never had inadequacy problems, right?
Yeah.
And I still don't. But one thing I've also learned is also like, you in as much as, oh, you can carry discernment and you learn the required skills to be able to be a better person and get yourselves into certain rooms. Discernment, being very observant and stellar and having like laser focused vision, not necessarily like pulling out or showing your hand at every time calls to mind. Yeah, so like being so more poker face, more. Yeah, you just take things gradually, and yeah, but pretty much ensuring that you are taking care of yourself, taking the lessons, doing the work internally, and yeah, pretty much more discernment, and not just like really revealing your card, yeah, to everybody. Before I used to believe, oh, transparency, I just tell everybody. If you do that, people, yeah, but nah, that's not how shit works.
As kids, right, we let loose with, our emotions and
Yeah,
our thoughts around aspirations and what we could be. And I remember, especially as you go through Hollywood movies, and other influences, cultural influences, at some point you wanted to become Michael Jackson. And this is for me specifically. Other points you wanted to become Jean-Claude Van Damme. And there was a time you wanted to be, Arnold Schwarzenegger from, these were some of the cultural
if you look
icons that
forward to,
influenced me as
yeah.
kids. And other times he wanted to be in the military, he wanted to be a soldier. And I know that in recent times I felt like if I had a different upbringing, I probably would have been a fighter pilot, right? But as you grow, realization hits on, dawns on you. And for you, at what point did you begin to realize that all of this isn't going to happen? And how did you take that? What was that realization for you?
So to be honest, like as a growing child in Nigeria, particularly in Delta State, right? There were different versions of the dream I dreamed. There was a part of me that, yeah, the first one was, yeah, the alliance in be freedom, yeah, because I represented freedom for me. Then there was a part of me who I can't remember what particular year Olympics, but seeing the gymnast, like, oh, I absolutely wanted to be a gymnast once upon a time, right?
Yeah.
And music, art. I remember like my favorite movie till now is Annie, Disney's Annie, the 1998 version. That's the second version. And one of the great things about that movie, Annie, was just like this orphan girl who, yeah, got adopted by the richest or wealthiest man in America, and yeah, New York Live, all that glam and music and everyone singing, and yeah, music making everything all right and being able to dream and everything coming true. So yeah, in some way, like that part of me who's drawn to musical and art is still here, right? It's still here, and
Yeah.
that's a part of me that I really, really do protect. But most importantly, like as much as you can escape in all of the various movies and art and all the dreams you have around you, some of those things you can only go so far in your fantasy, in your dreams, right? Because your reality draws you back down to earth, right? I wanting to be a gymnast, and the fact that I was my younger brother and I were at pre-adolescence age, were raised by my maternal grandma. My grandma didn't know what the hell we're talking about. Like, no, but there was no opportunities and there was no one to train a girl child like me to be a gymnast, right? Or
Yeah.
to pursue ballet or any of those fantasies or dreams. The roadmap was just go to school, do what you're supposed to do, get good grades, and keep it moving. And maybe one day you get married. Marriage was not in the cards for me as a person, and I knew that earlier on. So even
Yeah.
at in my teenage years, as at 15, early 15, I remember telling, yeah, my brother, my family, or whoever cared to listen, like I don't aspire to this thing. I don't want to be married, right? And they're like, yeah, shut up. What are you talking about? You're cursing yourself. Blah 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 blah. And this was also from a reflection of the things I saw around me growing up,
Yeah.
relationships, and what all that represented. And most importantly, they all felt like they were restrictive of my freedom. And the most important dream that I have, that I still live today fully, was one. I seek to live and build and have a life of options. An option for me is freedom. I want to be able to pick and choose whatever that I want, to go and come as I please, right? And without being restricted or confined or be at anybody's mercy. So have, yeah, pretty much. And post undergraduate and coming into adulthood in my 20s, I pretty much have worked towards having that life for myself. I have that life, and I don't take any of it for granted, right? So that's how I would describe all of that.
Tell me a little bit about, your initial desires or interest in arts, the music. Did you ever make inroad into them? And it doesn't have to be professionally.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, did you
Yeah.
make inroads? How
So
does
to
that
be
look like?
honest, so yeah, so in school you get, yeah, I was leader of the drama drama club in different primary school, secondary school. So yes, I was always pulled to the arts. With when it was time for us to choose majors, like it was no brainer. I chose art. I didn't want to even find out what the sciences had to offer me, right? Because art
Hmm.
just felt beautiful, right? The humanities, being able to express and write and express yourself with words as early as age 12, for instance, like my pen game was fire. Like I could spit fire. Like I could write really, really well. That the
Yeah.
adults around me would sometimes seek me out to probably like pen down something from their for their partners or their husbands or their wives, right? Because of how imaginative I could be and how I could translate that into
Yeah.
words. There was also the fact that in the children's choir, I was the leader of the children's choir, right? Picking the songs, choosing music, being able to like sing angelically and lift up people during mass and all of that. And in university, so in picking out all elective courses or like the first set of courses that I was going to take, taking up drama class was essential, right? Having like, okay, going through different literature, acting them out, understanding and going in depth more than just what you've been taught in secondary school in art classes. And yeah, music and my music taste far exceeds my music taste goes down into like the 1930s. And I remember like one of the oldest friends I have, and I mean age this time, was we connected on the fact that I he was talking about music from the 1950s, and I could relate because I knew it, which was very weird because
Yeah.
like, how old is this girl? Like, how come you know this stuff, right? So things like that have always called to me. And so moving to the UK, so I remember like for my 30th birthday, I booked a ticket to the opera, right? And I went to the ballet, and it was like nothing I've ever seen before. Yes, I've been on stage, I've built props for stage, and I've also acted on stage and all of that, but the level of production that went into professional work on stage at the
Yeah.
opera, at ballet, it was not like I've ever seen before. It was like, oh my god, like I went to see Don Quixote, and I remember like being in my first year in college and doing Don Quixote. So like the entire experience was absolutely very, very, very different for me. So right now, like art is something I still very much incorporate into my life. Stage plays, theater, writing. Writing has always been a way I express myself mentally. Emotionally, is the way I process it, the way I make sense of the world around me. I still like to like write things down on my notepad or on my phone's notepad. So that's how I process that. That's how I intuit towards like, okay, how do I process? Because I do see like my one of my superpower, my strength is strategy. So like yeah, after the Powerpuff Girls, yeah, Blossom is the leader of the group. So Hannah's
Oh
superpower
my
is
God.
strategy. Yeah, so she's strategy princess. So yeah, so thinking, being able to put my thought in paper and think things through pretty much be able to build really wonderful things, life changing things, revenue. Yeah, like so. Yes, that's art made flesh.
Quickly, Babs, to tell me one or two of those 1950s music that shaped you. I'm very curious to know.
Okay, so one that comes to mind is Jim Morrison's "Touch Me." There's that. Then most of the music, Black American blues from
Yeah.
back in the day. Yeah, so there's a whole lot of blues music, right? Yeah, which yeah, the
All right.
tune and
All right.
yeah,
Good.
you were gonna say
Good.
something.
And I picked up. You mentioned you moved to the UK, and I know quite well that you've moved quite a lot. And I was curious to the relationship between the girl child that you were and who you are now, and how moving helped and how moving interfered with that. Did it change you, or did it really help you become who you desired to be at some point?
To be honest, I think it helped me become who I always wanted to be, right? And in making like when I was thinking of moving, I wasn't necessarily looking at it from that perspective, right? I was moving because I had a goal in mind, right? A specific goal in mind, and I didn't think of, oh, how I do this, how will I do that? Because there was this very strong conviction that, oh, I will figure it out, like I always figure out everything. And honestly, like I am better off for it, and it's not like all of this came easy or the road wasn't tough. Like all of this, or the person I am right now is a result of someone who really did do a whole lot of hard things, that I'm really, really grateful for those experiences, both good and bad. But one thing that I would say that I would say one thing that it cost me is my innocence, right? Yeah. my innocence, and I'm also surprised by how much range that I have now. Growing up, I know I was ambitious, I know I was capable, but I did not know how many times that I could begin again. And moving has also like given me that opportunity to be able to see myself begin again multiple times. I've lived so many lives in the short span of my existence on earth. I did not know that, for instance, I could go through enormous heart shattering pain and still be able to deliver, right? And still be able to keep up with my commitments. I did not know that I could be exhausted and still be generous, right? I did not know that
Yeah.
I could hold softness and strategy in the same body. And I think that the UK revealed both my strengths and my tenderness.
Yeah, I mean, and I've picked a few things from our conversation, and I think the first one would be initial part when you were speaking about trying to really be in control of your decisions as well, right? And
Hmm.
but I've also like I've known you a while, and I know you're a generous person, and all generous to a fault, I would say. And so how do you contend with that? Trying to maintain control and make these decisions for yourself, but also again seeing yourself as well overextending again, which is ultimately what you were trying to prevent in the first place by being in control. How
Right.
do you how does that balance? How do you strike that balance? And that's the first observation. I'll get to the second one in a minute.
Yeah. How do I strike that balance between still being myself while still being generous? So I think I got to a point where I'm like, I stopped giving a fuck because, like I mentioned previously, like I grew up thinking that, oh, if you explain something very well to somebody, right? They will understand or whatnot. But maturing is realizing that people don't necessarily want what you're giving them. They want what you have. There is no way that you necessarily be able to convince somebody who is already committed to misunderstanding you. There's like you think that, oh, if I give someone my all and everything, it will somehow be enough. Yeah, that was one brutal, arduous lesson that I also had to painstakingly learn,
Mm-hmm.
right? And also the aftermath of that is also trying not to, or try to unlearn how to not internalize that, because all of that actually does a handful of damage to your persona, your self-esteem and all of that, especially like I said, when you grow up with the fact that or rather when you are growing up, or being growing up, right? It was beaten to me that, oh, you have to like live life a certain way. This is what being a good person looks like, right? But the me that is here right now, one thing I've had to come to terms with and understand is that endurance is not a virtue, right? So you don't have to so you have to figure out when it is enough or when you have gone overboard, which also comes back to being in your body, practicing self-trust, checking in with yourself, like, okay, I'm like, okay, am I doing this because of XYZ, right? Because
Yeah.
there were certain experiences I had, or certain experiences I had with people that had me questioning my intentions. Meanwhile, like I knew, oh, I was doing XYZ, because I like this person, or because of the relationship I thought I had with this person. But people also with their own life experiences, right? They can also sometimes project a whole lot of things to you, project lots of things to you. Like typically, like if I didn't care about, depending on who the person I'm dealing with, for any Tom, Dick, and Harry, like you can project all you want. It won't stick on me, right? Like because I'll barely be there to even listen to whatever it is you have to say to me. But if I actually cared enough and I've given someone stellar access to me, right? There is that thing of mirroring where you're like, sometimes like when someone says, oh, this is how you affect me, right? You might want to like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, take a pause, like, oh, try to figure out, is there some element of truth in this thing this person is saying, right? And check within yourself, right? And I was trying to be that person and whatnot. And yeah, like there were, lessons learned anyway, but I pretty much got to a place where I was like, okay, enough of this. So the me now is I'm constantly checking with myself. And
Yeah.
I kind of, like I said, I lost my innocence because of that. Because now it feels like before I make certain decisions, when it has to do with other people, I have to consult and spend a whole lot of time in my head trying to justify, like, oh, this is that, and it's annoying.
Yeah.
It's annoying, but hey, life.
And the second observation, and again you reiterated it, was losing your innocence. In our part of the world, when someone says that, it connotes negative thoughts and emotions. But I'd let you be the judge of what emotions is, right? I remember. I mean, I don't know if you remember, Babs, but Chimamanda is someone I look up to. I model how
Yeah,
I rise to her. I listen to her a
yeah,
lot. and I listened to her an unhealthy amount of time, and I recall when she was the her favorite. I think it was TEDx. We should all be feminists, and she used a
Yeah.
particular phrase when discussing. Being in a restaurant in Lagos with her friend, and I think her friend's name was Louis, and they had food, and the restaurant staff, handed the check over to the guy, and she said something. She said because she had previously complained to Louis about the differences in how people are treated, based on gender, and so she said, and then realization dawned on Louis' face. And so my question to you is, especially regarding your innocence, what was that like in terms of when did the realization dawn on you that you've lost your innocence, and it's on you to steer it towards how you want this story to be told.
So I think that the realization of having my innocence lost comes with acknowledging the cost. The cost. It comes with acknowledging that certain things have cost you something, right? I've always been a curious child. Like, yeah, I ask a lot of questions, right?
Yeah.
And growing up as a child in Nigeria, like especially in our generation, you're not allowed to ask questions. Like, why are you asking questions? People just pretty much just follow things because it's dogma and that's how it's supposed to be, or that's how it's done. Questioning authority or your elders, even from a place of curiosity, of even wanting to understand why is this done a certain way, why are you asking me to do XYZ, can be seen as disrespect. Can be seen as disrespect, right? So, and also being exposed to things from the West, music, film, right? And seeing how things worked there and wondering why can't that be here, right? Those were things I also added to my curious mind, my imaginative mind, and curiosity, and pretty much things that actually shaped me. But in terms of like understand that, oh, my innocence, I've lost my innocence, it came with the actualization, the acknowledgement, and the physical impact of realizing that certain things cost me something and sitting with the cost of those things. So whether it be trauma from experiences relationally, professionally, or anything, all of it came at a cost. And the cost of things, of admitting that something has cost us something is not something that a lot of people do, especially publicly. We don't all admit that the fact that I was able to do this job or show up for you like this cost me XYZ, right? And the truth is, like, there's only so much you can ignore some of those costs because they all start very tiny little. You don't see them, you don't acknowledge them, but they pretty much stack up over time, right? And one day, like strong people, like they say, strong people don't break, they shatter until one
Hmm.
day, yeah, it all comes crashing down. And being able to sit with that cost and be able to try to put yourself back together again, that changes it. That changes you. That changed me. Yeah, that was how it happened.
I mean, I know you've been through quite a lot of growth process, and hearing you speak about the cost of whether they were decisions or the cost of things that have gone through your life, and I'm curious to see what has those changes due to some of the costs that you bore,
Yeah.
how did it change you, what did it take away from you, or what did it give you?
So I think what it gave me was one discernment, more self trust, and more self respect. So self respect is something that at some point in my life I acknowledged like, about 3 years ago. Yes, I think I have self respect, but I think it can be a whole lot better, especially when it comes to relating with people
Yeah.
because there are some things that just happens, right? In as much as you see like, oh, I'm doing this thing for the greater good or for XYZ reasons, the audience who are not affected by any of the cost or circumstances have their own perspective of your life because they're looking outside inward, right? As opposed to you sitting and doing all of it. So and sometimes so that's where also like having a community comes into play. Who are the people you trust? Who are the people you can confide in and talk to? Who can actually give you feedback and you be able to accept and register that feedback or consider some of those feedback, right? So that's really important. Secondly, being able to like okay have people that you trust that you can consider, be able to consider their opinions, right? And yeah, way it also comes to play in acknowledging okay this is the perspective of this and juxtaposing that against whatever internal story you're telling yourself, right? It also comes down to a place of acknowledging that or pretty much accepting things for what they are. which also comes down to the story you tell yourself. Yeah, like, so I believe that from the story we tell ourselves as people is one of the most important things. And being able to be honest with yourself is fundamental in how things affect or change you, and the changes that you make to be able to get out or continue with life or whatever situation that you are in. And for me, in terms of like being able to acknowledge or see the things that changed me for what they were, like I've also talked, then I think next thing is being honest about your capacity. So the language you gave me, or in changing, like one of the language or in going through that growth or that journey, was also being able to acknowledge that, okay, I might love something, right? My love for something or a person might be infinite, right? But my capacity is finite. Like, right? Energy, like you're tired, and maybe it's a Nigerian thing, like, right? You never want to really admit that you are tired. Physical tiredness, oh, you can tell, oh, you can rest and keep continue, right? But
Yeah.
working things like, let's even say professional work, for instance, right? Once upon a time, or when I became a professional in the corporate world, it was at a
Yeah.
time where we used to brag about the fact that you could reply an email at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., because exhaustion was the sign of this person is committed, right?
Yeah.
In the 2020s, that is seen as a toxic work environment, right? And the years before that, or 2 decades before that, somebody complaining about burnout or speaking about burnout was considered lazy and someone who was not committed to work. But truly, so the fact that people could be burnt out, right, and yet still show up to work and still carry on, it cost them something, but at what cost? So you might be someone who was performing optimally at work, but your personal life, your family life, all of those things are suffering. There's a cost to it. So the busy woman you see, the career woman you see doing something, the husband who is rich and provides for the wife, it all costs them time, energy, and time or quality time with their family, with the people they love in their life, with their religion, with different
Yeah.
things, right? So being able to acknowledge and be able to, like, okay, this is what this thing cost me, and be able to, like, oh, be honest with yourself about your capacity. Work life balance, back then we believe that, oh, this is something that was possible if you optimize like this, like that, like that.
Yeah.
But I'm in a place in my life where now optimization language is now like it's a buzzword now. Every other thing is telling you to optimize your sleep, optimize how you do this. Everyone is wearing whoops and Apple watches and telling them you're not sleeping enough, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And I'm exhausted that things like that are now like a trigger for me. I do not want to learn how to optimize anything. Like, I'm tired. There's no, like, you cannot optimize for real life, work life balance. Yeah, that is not right now. If it feels fallacious, it's not something that is possible. It things are, you get what you put your time and energy towards. So if it's, I want to rest, you have to deliberately create time for that and block out every other thing, right? Something has to give, something has to compensate, and it's something you have to figure out for yourself.
All right. I mean, like many people, you've gone through a lot of change process, and I mean, you know how I feel about you in terms of just being proud of what you've been through to get where you are. But I think my question is, was there any difficulty you faced in getting there in terms of, was there a part of you you wished that you never had to change, that you've now changed? Do you have something like that?
Yes, yes and no. So
Okay.
when I look back at certain experiences or the versions of me from 2, 3 years ago, right? I'm not exactly the person I was 2, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes look back at some of the things I did, right? Which were things that, oh my God, I was so like, oh my God, I did these things effortlessly, right?
Yeah.
Because of how committed I was to a cause or to a person or to a job or anything. I look back and I'm like, God, I don't think I can do that now. So, like, right now, I'm very protective of myself. I'm very protective of my time. I'm very protective of my brain, right? I'm acknowledging that these things are scarce resources. I don't, yeah, like, I'm so protective of those things. I just don't give access to myself nilly willy, not for anything. Because,
Yeah.
like I said, I've come to a place where I now acknowledge that certain things cost me something, and be able to sit and name those costs for things, right? So now it might kind of like feel a little bit transactional, but I think
Mm.
I'm better for it. Is it sad a little bit? Definitely, because like I said, it stripped me of my innocence, where I didn't have to think or over calculate or is this coming from this angle? Is that coming from that angle? I just did things just because, right? Now I don't necessarily do things just because. I don't do things for the plot anymore.
Yeah.
Everything has to have a means to an end. Everything has to have a reason. And it's kind of low key sad, but hey, it's life,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's life. But I'm better for it. I am happy, right? I am happy. Yeah, so I'm good.
All right. Perhaps, we all desire change, right? We all have goals, and part of, being able to achieve those goals is to go through a change process, right? And you seem to be experiencing just going through change, right? And my question to you is, why do you, and I do believe that for some people, one of the reasons they are not, maybe closer to their goals is because they've not been able to go through the necessary change required to just become a different version of themselves, right? And why do you think that is? Why do you think so many people struggle to let go of who they used to be? And at the same time, they also desire to be a different person.
I would say it comes down to hunger. Flores and the Machines. Flores Welsh has a song called Hunger, and the song is actually about her anorexia or her relationship with food. But when I listen to that song, it's not about food for me. It's about different things, right? So I'm someone who I grew up a dreamer. I'm a dreamer at heart. I wanted a better life for myself. I dreamed of a life that was bigger than the rural area that I grew up with. I grew up as a child where my grandma raised me, right? I grew up on the fact that my family gave me the best that they could, right? And there was a point in my life where I used to be mad at my mom when she would always tell me something from a point of frustration or exhaustion. I've done the best I
Mm-hmm.
can do for you. The rest is left for you to raise yourself. I started living on my own when I was 20. For a Nigerian child, an Igbo girl child, you know what that means. Like, yeah, it took a great art of rebellion to be able to do that. And with that came with the fact I had to quickly learn discipline, right? I could have chosen, I had freedom. I could have gone or decided to model my life through any other whatever. But the person I am right now is grateful for the fact that I quickly acknowledged that there was that need for me to be able to learn or develop discipline. And most importantly, I was hungry for a better life. I was hungry to win. I was hungry to succeed. I was hungry to prove that this rebellious act that I have done to remove myself from my family because the relationship did not serve me in a certain way, right? Was not because I wanted to embrace the bad things they thought every other person who seeks or yearns for freedom wanted. So it comes down at hunger. My hunger is what led me here. My hunger was what led me in the job searches, in me being able to move from Nigeria to the UK on my own merit. It's my hunger. Be able to have gotten my indefinite leave to remain, which is synonymous like a US green card under 3 years. That was my hunger. Being able to like win awards, be able to support businesses, founders, and all the large ways or different ways that my life is big are all rooted from my hunger. I'm dreaming of a better life that I want to be able to do XYZ. All stems from my hunger, right? And also acknowledging the fact that I have the capacity, like I mentioned earlier, in I've never had that feeling of, oh, I can't do this shit, or if only I was finer, or if only I had this or that, I would have been able to do XYZ. I've never told myself those stories because it was from that whole thing of, if you wanted something real bad, if you're really hungry for something, you would try as much as possible to get it, right? And that also meant that I also had to develop a keen sense of solution orientedness, right? In tandem with that discipline at age 20, and find creative ways to solve important problems. Work was a great training ground for that, and be able to, like, the framework that they even give us at work when it came to KPI, quarterly business reviews of you coming to say how you were able to improve, right? Those were things I also took into my own personal life. Be able to like ask myself difficult questions and be honest with myself, like, okay, how do we improve, or how do we do XYZ, or get from point A to point B? Wanting that, realizing that, I had this hunger in me, or this fantasy, or this goal in mind to be able to achieve XYZ, and be able to come up with creative ways or come up with a plan to be able to get me XYZ. Know that, I needed community, or I needed the intervention of certain people, and be able to ask for the help of those people to be able to help me get to XYZ. Being able to rely on people or borrow the credibility of other people around me. And that also came down to being reliable as a person, right? As a friend at work. And that was how I was able to get the community who I could write off their back, right? Or borrow their credibility to be able to get XYZ. So I say hunger makes for a great sense of motivation towards getting your
Yeah.
goal. And yeah, being able to acquire or grow the discipline and the skills required to get you from point A to point B.
Amazing. And one question, Barbara, if someone is watching this and they're in the middle of a change, what do you think what do you think is true about them that they probably haven't seen yet?
So I would say it starts with capacity. Many times we don't acknowledge what our capacity is for something. But most importantly, many people, even when they come face to face with their limitations, right? Or whatever limitations towards whatever goals, the fact they're trying to change or do XYZ, and they feel stuck like, "I can't because of XYZ limitation, or I don't have the capacity." For me, it also comes down to definition, right? How I define capacity, for me, capacity is a muscle, right? You can train a muscle. You can train a muscle to grow, to be able to be effective, to carry you, to hold your body, like when you have a
Yeah.
goal in mind, right? And many times people are like, I don't think I have the capacity to do X, Y, Z. Being able to be honest with yourself and, okay, why don't I have the capacity? What are my limitations? Like, even the words, the story you tell yourself, and what are your definitions for all those things? And being deliberate or tenacious enough, or even have that hunger to be able to take yourself from point A to point B. And also consistency. Yeah, so we say consistency is 1% every day, 1% every day. Some people optimize for 1% every day, 1% every day, but after 30 days they are done, after a week they are done, right? Yeah, so consistency matters a whole lot too, right? Which is what I think people struggle with when they say I don't have the capacity. And many times we can also project, oh, because maybe you were able to do XYZ, you like to think that if I gave this person the framework that I followed, or I gave them this support, or I was able to support them, they might be able to get it. You projecting your
Yeah.
qualities or your strength and whatever on person X might not be their reality. So also being honest and coming to terms with what that person's reality is, vis-a-vis what their capacity is. And also if they are willing and dedicated to staying committed to actually making the change, or doing the hard work that it requires for to get them to where they are going to, or get them to own that goal, is what important. You can love a person, you can do so many things for a person, but you cannot will them into change. You cannot force them into change. You cannot beat that into them until they are fully ready to own it themselves.
All right. And for your final question, Barbara, and I'm curious to hear from you. After everything life has changed, taking and giving, are you closer to yourself now than you've ever been? Do you think?
I think yes, I am. I am closer to myself in the sense that in this season of my life, because yes, I've been building for the last 3 to 4 years since I moved here, right? And I was very clear on what my goals were, and I've worked really hard and achieved those things in within that time frame. And now I'm asking myself what I want the next phase of my life to look like, right? I don't have a clear answer for it, but I do know what I want it to look like. And I'm also in this place, and because of that, I'm now in this place where I'm experimenting and letting myself explore multiple options. I know the kind of life I want to live. I'm trying to figure out the next place I want to live, right? So because of that, in trying to give myself that be able to answer that real question for myself, I'm opening myself up to multiple options, right? Today I'm curious about, oh, do I like Greenland? So I'm looking at, okay, what areas locally in the UK do I want to go to? And the experience of going on the road by my lonesome by myself has been great. It's allowed me to sit with myself, listen to music, look at the landscapes, touch grass. Like when we talk, make those jokes of, oh, go touch grass, oh, like that feels different. Be able to just hear the birds sing, feel the air around you, relate with different new strangers in a different part of town every other weekend. That is one of the things I do every week that I feel makes me calm. It's a way of giving back to myself after all of the rush of work and school and every other thing. It's a way that calms and quiets me. I can tell you that at the end of each work week, or the end of each week, when I sit back and I reflect on the week I've had, I am happy because my week, the way I plan my week, yes, there's space for work and every other important thing that it takes to move the life I have now ahead, but there's also space that I create intentionally to give back to myself, to feed myself, whether it's going to a museum to look at celestial objects like I did last week, whether it's going to a restaurant to sit outside and eat fancy dinner, and maybe I want to go to a metal concert. There's that way of me still being able to pour back into myself, and I'm living truly, not just existing for the sake of paying bills. Those are paying bills and everything else. They're not going to end. For me, just part of the life admin, right?
Yeah.
But right now, I think I'm better off. I'm happier. Do I have everything I want in my life, right? And for the things I don't necessarily have right now, I'm hopeful that they will come, because I'm pretty much doing all that I need to do to get me to those places.
All right. This has been an excellent conversation, Barbara. Thank you so much for joining us on this show. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you.
The question was never whether life will change us. Over and over again, it will. The question is whether we'll learn to recognize ourselves in who we've become. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.